And welcome back to the hot stage. We're talking Toto WOLF, and is he a massive hypocrite when it comes to his driver announcement? He flip-flops more than, well, let's be fair, most governments do in terms of changing their minds. On 1 minute, he's happy with his driver lineup. Another minute, he's not. The third minute, he's flirting with Max Verstappen. What on earth is going on? And I like Toto WOLF, but not many people have really pointed this out until now. So welcome to the Toto WOLF unofficially official hypocrisy celebration. Is it? I mean, okay. Now, I've got this, obviously, this lovely Sky interview, which I'm not going to be playing all of it because, you know, copyright restrictions, etc. But he does make, let's start with this, because Toto WOLF does make what I feel some very interesting things he says. Let's just make it a bit bigger so we can, there we go. Let's have a listen, shall we? The first one's about 2 minutes 18 in, so let's go to here. And you're here, and we'll comment, and then you comment below. Let me know what you think.
George particularly is really enjoying a purple patch in terms
of
his form and his energy that he's bringing to the team. His best start to a season actually in his whole
Absolutely,
career.
This is the 2025
how
season.
You viewed things.
He's doing a top job. I think it was always people. He was a little bit always. I wouldn't say underrated because he's such a stoic person that people.
But I know what you mean. I don't think people spoke about George Russell in the same sense as obviously Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, and even Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. And in terms of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, I think, and a lot of people think, he's absolutely as great as them as possible.
You know, talked about Lewis or talked about Max, and now you can see how he's delivering. I think he's performing in that car to the maximum, and he's doing really great.
The mark of the great champions like Senna and Michael Schumacher, we sit with Max.
So, I mean, it's really nice, to be fair, that Toto WOLF points that out. He knows how good George Russell is. Now, let's get to the next point.
Rather have him doing in qualifying, and it's a trajectory.
Well, he's talking about Kimi Antonelli.
George's level is very high.
George is very high.
Formula One, and I always say to him through karting and your junior formulas, you have never been exposed to such a field of the best drivers in the world.
No.
And they have been here for a long time, so it would have been weird him coming in.
And this is where he's talking about Kimi Antonelli and the fact that he's being compared to George Russell coming in against someone as good as George Russell.
Being on George's pace, because that would have meant George is not maybe on the max level or so.
And we know he is.
George is, and therefore.
You heard that here. George is on the max level, as in Max Verstappen. Let's listen to that again.
On the max level or so, and George is, and therefore, you know, this is why it takes time.
Have you got?
And he's talking about it taking time for Kimi Antonelli to get fast. And this was, what, 4 months ago now this was recorded? Last little snippet from this interview, and then we'll carry on to the next one. Are you ready?
Putting in the hours, he's developing next year's car, so it's strong.
Max Verstappen slipped through your fingers as a junior driver. If he was on the market again, you wouldn't miss him a second time, would you?
No, I wouldn't say that. You know, I always say I don't flirt outside if I'm happy in the relationship.
So?
And in a professional way, if not, I get a really hard time from Susie. There's no question about that. Anyway, privately, but on a professional level, I'm super happy with the lineup we have. I couldn't wish for anything better. And Max is at Red Bull. We haven't had a conversation.
Now, this was obviously before the conversations, and once again, he was flirting with Max all the way through 2024. And then he says repeatedly at the beginning of the year as well, I'm really happy with our team. I'm not going to go elsewhere. But he quite clearly is. There's been these alleged meetings with Max. No, they're not. I don't think they're bosom buddies. Let's be honest. What Toto WOLF said with these supposed meetings, he's not really stringently denied it. And at the time of speaking to you, Friday the 12th of September, about 11 o'clock in the evening as I'm recording this, George Russell still hasn't got a contract. Now, the rumour is he wants a 2-year contract and they're offering him a 1 + 1 year contract. We'll get to that in a sec. But there we go. You've heard Toto WOLF saying he's happy. He's happy, apparently, with the driver lineup. But yet he completely still flirts and has other opinions, which we'll most certainly get into. Now, this is, again, him being asked this year about the driver lineup.
McLaren's lineup next year with the same power unit that you kindly provide to them. You would need Max and George, wouldn't you? That's the duo you would have to, and then sort out two bulls in one field.
Well, this is all more in the, let's say, long shot, far-fetched, because I want to stay with Kimi and George as it stands.
You've heard it here again. I want to stay with Kimi and George, but
everything else is not realistic. But obviously, you have a Russell Verstappen lineup that's Prost Senna, I guess, no?
So okay, and he's saying like a Prost Senna would be a George Russell and a Max Verstappen lineup. That would be quite tasty.
I'm a bit confused because I'm not as clever as you, but you manage George. I understand. Mercedes-Benz manage George, but George doesn't have a drive for next year confirmed.
What is that about?
How does that work in reality? Do you sort of step over the other side and go like, that's too much money, George, and how does it work?
Well, we try to pick up young drivers very early in their career, and we are financing all of it.
And that's what they've done, for example, with Kimi Antonelli, George Russell, I think Esteban Ocon as well. They do have, to be fair, as much as Red Bull has been praised in the past, Mercedes have had quite a decent young driver setup. They're both now in the car as we speak.
So we're not asking any contribution from the parents or any sponsors. And for that, for a certain time, we have the managerial rights. And it's very similar to what Red Bull has.
And is George asking too much money? What's stopping you signing George? Because it must be so embarrassing for him. Keep turning up at Grand Prix, having to justify himself when he's doing such a good job.
No, I think it's more that you guys make a lot of pressure, and because it's an interesting topic, it's completely normal.
Well, Martin Brundle's making a really good point. If you think you rate George that much, you heard him compared to Max Verstappen, he thinks he's right up there, why haven't you signed him? Because George Russell supposedly wants more multiple-year contract, Toto WOLF doesn't. Now, why doesn't Toto WOLF want a multiple-year contract for George? Because he's obsessed with a certain Dutchman who, let's be fair, is one of the most talented drivers of his generation. But then Max Verstappen, whether you like it or not, comes with baggage, his hanger-on father, and goodness knows what with the other entourage do. And Max Verstappen has said he wants to stay at Red Bull as well. So a lot is going to depend on next year. If Red Bull have an absolutely crap car, Mercedes have an absolutely amazing car, then obviously Max may reconsider going to Mercedes. And he, understandably, Toto WOLF does not want to burn that bridge of Max Verstappen. But yeah, he's got a Kimi Antonelli that's struggling very much. So if you were to get rid of one driver this year, it would surely be Kimi, sadly, because George is in the prime of his life. He may well be the best driver of the year when you look at the year as a whole. I guess him and Max are very much up there, along with Oscar. Maybe Lando if he wins it.
Normal, we have those negotiations and those discussions. Every driver wants to have a better car and more money. Completely normal behavior.
Yeah, but you haven't signed him yet. It's just a bit weird, isn't it? And now this is Toto, once again, loving the Max Verstappen after Monza, which I think is interesting.
So give us the perspective from Mercedes. It looked like you had some cars in front of you that were a little bit slower, got dropped into some traffic.
Yeah, it was a tough day today. You can clearly see that there's one guy that makes everybody look a bit bad, a bit stupid. And our car just didn't have the pace today, and generally I think over the weekend all of us didn't perform on the level you need in order to make it to the podium.
So what was the issue? Was it this tyre temperature thing again?
Yeah.
I mean, all around there's never one reason. The combination between...
I mean, let's be honest, when you got someone like George Russell, who's as good as he is, it's the car. And Max Verstappen didn't make you look stupid. It was Red Bull and Max Verstappen making you look stupid. Let's be fair. Once again, Max is very talented. He's one of the best drivers, but he has a bespoke car. He has a car designed for him. Yes, it might not be as good as it was, but when you look at the way the other number two struggling, just like the Benetton years with Michael Schumacher and some of the Ferrari years, it's really, really obvious. Red Bull, understandably, don't want to admit it. Once again, Max is a very, very talented driver. Don't let me get that wrong. But
tires, the chassis, the drivers all need to go hand in hand. And if there's just one weak link, you are losing. And if there's two or three, then
yeah, the weak link's the car.
obviously you have no chance.
Okay, so looking forward then, how do you see this really keen fight between you and Ferrari for P2 in the Constructors' Championship? Do you feel, obviously nobody's developing their car anymore, everyone's on 2026?
Okay, I mean, he's talking about something else, but yeah, but I think that's quite interesting. And he said also later on about Kimi I nearly said Raikkonen then, but Kimi Antonelli's race, underwhelming this weekend, underwhelming. You can't put the car on the gravel bed and expect to be there. He did that in practice, didn't he? All of the race was underwhelming. It doesn't change, and this was, to be fair, quite nice. It doesn't change anything on my support and confidence in his future because I believe he's going to be very, very, very good. But today was underwhelming. Well, if you believe that, why are you looking for Max Verstappen then? Why? Now, this is Toto WOLF on this 2-year contract, allegedly, that George Russell's won. He said, if a driver says, I'd be quicker if I had a 2-year contract, that mindset is not right. No, Wolf and Russell's new contract. I'll agree with that. But then, I think all George Russell is asking is, why don't you have faith in me? And when we go back to that original interview, the interview after, why hasn't George Russell now been confirmed? It must be really, really horrible for his own mental health, for his own, I don't want to say ego, but for his own confidence. This team there, where it's kind of like, I guess, you go with your girlfriend to a bar and then your girlfriend ends up flirting with this other guy the whole night. You're going to feel pretty like meh, aren't you? And that's exactly what George Russell must feel like right now with, I think, the slightly hypocritical Toto WOLF at the moment, because he is all about Max Verstappen, isn't he? And this is him talking about Max. I think this was last year when they're talking about who's going to be driving in 2025.
Car right now would add to performance.
No, I just think he's extraordinary. But
talking about Max.
Give him a car that's a handful. Difficult to set up and drive, and I'd rather make that step and be out there and say, this is a car you could drive, because it's also going fast.
Do you think that you're going to have a decision on that anytime soon? What is the time frame around actually knowing who that person is going to be next to George?
That as much as we were taken aback by Lewis's decision so quickly, now I want to really take my time. We have a slot free, the only one in the top teams, unless Max decides he goes, then the slot is not going to be free with us anymore. There is a few options that are really interesting for us, from the very young super talent to...
And that's when he's talking about Kimi Antonelli.
Some of the elder ones who are very experienced.
And he's not denying he wants Max. I understand, but the press conference he gave, Toto WOLF gave when he had Kimi, is he basically said, it was Kimi all the time. All the time it was going to be Kimi Antonelli. When you just need to look and Google a few of his interviews, when it absolutely isn't. This guy is an absolute flip-flop politician at the moment. Don't get me wrong, I like the guy. He's really got to drive to survive. I think he is a good team boss, but let's not forget, this might be an unpopular opinion about Toto WOLF, but let's not forget with Toto WOLF, he came in about, in 2014, when a lot of the work had been done with Mercedes, with Ross Brawn and everything, getting the right people. Nicky Lauda was there as well, getting Lewis Hamilton on board. They had the engine. He was there pretty much before he didn't have any say in this design of this new engine, which, yes, the car was solid, but it was that engine which gave Mercedes the advantage for the first couple, for the first couple of years. And because of that, they had such an advantage, they could start all their design super, super early for the next year and keep that advantage. And Toto WOLF, it's kind of like coming in on a football match as a substitute when you're 10-0 up, I guess. It's quite difficult to mess up. And to be fair, he did a very, very good job. But let's not forget, he is not the sole reason, a long way from the sole reason initially, why that Mercedes car was so good in 2014 onwards. He was there, he was one of the reasons, but he wasn't the sole reason. And I think a lot of people forget that. Yes, he is a very, very good team principal, but he had a lot of help as well. Please, let's not forget that. And here it is. Wolf wants to stay with Kimi and George, and this was again in July 2025. Only a few months ago. It's just this was on Formula One's own website. What is going on? What is going on here? Absolutely. So there we go. That's our thoughts. That's our thoughts on the slightly controversial topic of, is Toto WOLF a hypocrite? We like him, but yes. If you made it to the end, as I said, hit that button again. Give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing. But until then, we will no doubt speak to you soon. Thank you very much. But above all else, stay safe.